Deny, defend, depose. 3 words etched on the ammunition used against the United CEO. It echoes the greed that's fueling the stranglehold on the American healthcare system. And if you've ever dealt with U.S. health insurance, it's also very on brand. Deny claims, endless paperwork, and profits made at the expense of people's lives. These are the tactics that are baked into the system. When I tested positive for the BRCA2 gene mutation, my fear wasn't just about cancer. It was about whether my health insurance would actually cover the preventative care that I might need. Would I have to fight for treatment? Or worse, go without it. In the US, over 28 million people are uninsured. They live one diagnosis away from financial ruin. Now, living in Europe, that fear, it feels like a distant nightmare. Here, I don't worry about my healthcare being a for-profit gamble or a death sentence. And healthcare is just one of those things that I don't worry about anymore now that I live in Europe. Life here comes with a lot less stress. Imagine a place where getting sick doesn't mean weighing the cost of survival against bankruptcy. If you're from the States, it probably sounds like a fairy tale, but it's not. Back in the US, healthcare isn't just a system, it's a racket. A shiny billion-dollar scheme where insurance companies are the house, and the house always wins. They've convinced us that access to medical care is a privilege, not a right, and they've wrapped that privilege in red tape and fine print. Delay the payment, deny the claim, defend the decision. Here in Europe, healthcare is simple. You need a doctor? Call. You need surgery? Get it. You need to give birth? Enjoy 2 nights in the hospital for free. I had my daughter in Spain, and when the nurse handed me the bill, it was a basket filled with everything I needed for a week as a new mother. How much did it cost me? €0. Compare that to the US, where holding your newborn for 5 minutes costs you more than your first car. How is it that a nation like the US, the land of opportunity, sees millions of people skip medical care because they simply can't afford it? That's not a system. That's a crisis. It's a corporate controlled nightmare where your health is less important than a CEO's third yacht. And Americans are conditioned to fear single-payer systems, but the taxes. Sure, taxes might be higher, but guess what? You're not paying $600 a month in premiums for insurance that denies your claims faster than you can say out of network. Here in Spain, I don't even think about premiums, co-pays, or surprise bills. My taxes cover it, and that's the end of the story. And for those of you who are worried about losing choice, let me tell you this. When you're drowning in medical debt, the only choice you're making is whether to skip your mortgage or groceries to pay it off. Here, you choose doctors, not which limb you can afford to treat. The American system pits you against insurers and big pharma. It's a system designed to profit from your pain. Here, healthcare is about care. And once you experience it, you realize that the US healthcare system isn't broken. It's working exactly as it was designed to keep you desperate, compliant, and poor. So let's call it what it is. The American healthcare system isn't just flawed, it's a villain. It's time to stop defending it and demand better. Gun violence shouldn't be on anyone's daily worry list, but for many Americans, it's a part of life. After all, in Florida, my home state, guns are practically woven into the fabric of daily culture. Contrast this with Europe. Here, firearms are treated less like lifestyle accessories and more like privilege. In Europe, owning a gun is a bureaucratic marathon. First, you need a reason, hunting or sports shooting, for example. Then you should expect background checks, psychological evaluations, and mandatory training. Contrast that with Florida, where a gun is easier to purchase than a car. No waiting period for rifles or shotguns, no licensing requirements for gun ownership, and as of 2023, permitless carry. You can now carry a concealed weapon in Florida without a permit. In Florida, I was used to seeing vinyl stickers with slogans like, "Come and take it," paired with images of AR-15s on car windows. Billboards for gun shows were as common as ones advertising Disney World. In Spain, the only guns I've seen are in the hands of law enforcement or hunters headed to the mountains. Here, there are no casual displays of firepower. People don't worry about a heated argument turning into a tragedy. Florida is famous for its stand your ground law. If you feel threatened, you can use deadly force. Some call it defense of personal liberty, but it just amplifies the violence. Europe takes a radically different approach. The idea of using a gun for self-defense is almost unheard of. In fact, in most European countries, it's illegal to justify owning a firearm for personal protection. They have a stronger social safety net, and that reduces inequalities. This makes self-defense a far less common necessity. Florida has a gun death rate of roughly 14.1 people per 100,000 residents, whereas Spain has a 0.6 person per 100,000 residents. The difference isn't just a statistic, it's a peace of mind. And when I walk down a crowded street, I'm not calculating exit routes or assessing potential threats. I'm just walking. In Florida, owning an AR-15 might make someone feel invincible. In Spain, that kind of firepower is reserved for the military. There's no need for semi-automatic weapons. People aren't constantly bracing for a theoretical home invasion or a mass shooting. Guns, when they're owned, are tools for sport, hunting, or a necessity. It's not a lifestyle statement. The safety I feel in Spain isn't just psychological, it's statistically reinforced. My daughter can go to school and I can visit a cafe knowing that a bad day is just a bad day and not the start of a headline. Here, I've gained something more valuable than the freedom to carry a gun. I've gained the freedom to not be killed by one. About 20 years ago, I signed away my soul for a piece of paper. It's the one that gave me the privilege of paying it off until my hair turned gray. And look, my hair's gray, but I'm still paying. That's the American dream, right? You graduate, you get a job, and you pay off your student loans for the next 40 years. It's fantastic. And don't get me wrong, I have no regrets about my education, but I'm still paying for it a decade later. In fact, I've paid more than the initial loan amount. And guess what? I still owe more than the initial loan amount. But hey, I got that degree. Now let me compare that with my daughter's experience. She's looking at universities in Europe. We're looking at $300 to $600. We're looking at 300 to 600 euros a semester. Meanwhile, back in the US, going to college is the equivalent of buying a tiny home. Indentured servitude isn't the model of education here in Europe. Should a 4-year degree cost more than a car and a small home combined? Is that the real price of a bright future? If you think education should actually set you up for life and not be a debt trap, you might want to think about going abroad. A little weekend getaway to Spain to drop your kid off at a university that costs less than your yearly car insurance premium. Education is supposed to make you smarter, not leave you in a lifetime of debt. So while I'm over here figuring out how to pay off my student loans, I have relief in knowing that my daughter won't go through this. It's nice to know that there are places in the world where people can afford to educate their children without sacrificing them to pay for it. Food, that thing that keeps you alive. If you're an American, you're probably used to the idea that quality food costs an arm and a leg. It's like when you go to Whole Foods and leave with that feeling that you've just donated your whole savings to the everything is organic, so it's expensive fund. In Europe, at least in Spain, good food doesn't need a second mortgage. I bet you didn't know that food actually tastes better here. It's like Europeans have figured out that food should taste like, well, food, not like sodium-packed, added sugars, chemically enhanced to regret. Here, everything is fresh, seasonal, bursting with flavor. I mean, have you ever had a tomato that actually tastes like a tomato? I was used to it tasting like water. I hadn't tasted a tomato until I came here. Real food in Spain is affordable, unless, of course, you're trying to buy something that's out of season. Then, yeah, it costs more. The thing is, here, people eat with the seasons. Real food in Europe isn't expensive. You don't go bankrupt buying fresh vegetables. In fact, it's comparable in price to the processed stuff. Because we eat fresh here, refrigerators are smaller. It's also because the food comes without all those chemicals that has it lasting in the fridge for 2 weeks. You buy what you plan on eating, and you cook with real ingredients. I don't lose sleep over these things anymore since moving to Spain. Now, does this mean that Europe is perfect? Of course not. I still miss certain things about the US too, like central AC when it's hot outside. But overall, the trade-offs have been worth it. In the comments, tell me anything you think I missed in this video. And if you're dreaming about moving abroad, let me tell you, there are a lot of upgrades to doing so. You know, this CEO shooting is the first time in a while that Americans seem to agree on something. It's as though a spotlight was shown on the actual problem and people aren't arguing about symptoms. They have their eyes open to see. Now, I want you to watch this And then I want you to click this so you can subscribe. Okay, bye.